Hey, welcome back to another YOML, a year of practical learning. Today we're on book 128. And I think today we're probably talking about something about designs and how humans use design to better our life. I'll let Chris tell you more.
Yeah, so this book was actually a really interesting one. I can't remember exactly how I came to this book or where I found it. I think it was just like one of those random ones that was recommended by the algorithms on Amazon or something that I read pretty regularly. But this was called The Design of Everyday Things by the author Don Norman. Don is I think he used to work for like Apple and used to work for other kind of tech companies, and he has spent his entire career designing products and things that we tangibly use in this world, like whether it be this book basically detailing how to build a product that is human-centered design. It keeps the human in mind, basically, as to how you build the product. So Don has spent a lifetime of not just studying products, but like studying how do humans behave, how do we act, how do we think, how do we react to understanding certain things, what makes us tick. And then he's taken those concepts and he's built the products that he's built to make them, and software and whatever else things that he's worked on and consulted on in his career, to help make it almost seem like it's invisible, right? Seamlessly fits in with how we have evolutionarily evolved and behave. The goal is just to make it feel like it doesn't exist, right? It's an extension of our human self with a physical product in this world, or a software or some service or something along those lines. That's his approach on human-centered design. I mean, that's the design of everyday things. That's what this book's really about. And that's what the reflection title is, human-centered design. Mm-hmm. I started to think after I read this book, I was like, first off, I learned a lot in it, specifically around like affordances and signifiers. So like affordances being like, what can this thing do? And then signifiers of how do you notify the person what these things do? So what is the product? What is the actual functionality of what this product can do, and then how do we alert people and signify what to do or not, using that human-centered design approach on everything. But really what this book made me start to think about was transferring this philosophy over to other areas of our life, and beyond just products, which I started to think more and more. And this goes right in line with Clubany and what we're trying to create, of how misaligned we are in our work every single day and what we do with what humans are and how we've evolved and what we do. We are not made to sit at a desk like a sloth for 8 to 10 hours a day. We are not made to be isolated from our families for long stretches at a time. We're not made to be specialists in one single domain.
And we're not supposed to be robots either.
We're not supposed to be robots, right? We're not made to get up at 5 a.m. every single day and grind away and go on 5 hours of sleep every single night. We're not made to work one job for their entire lives and only do one thing. It reminds me of the Entangled Life book, right? Our job is to be creators, composers. Our job is to mash up all different experience, explore, learn, grow, mash up all different kinds of things together, to bring forth our imagination and our creativity to create in this world, right? We're made to be active. We're made to learn. We're made to move. We're made to try new things. We're made to be curious. We're made to ask questions, to explore, to play. All those things that are innately human. So taking that same kind of philosophy of human-centered design that we put around products that Don has spent a lifetime of doing, I think you and I are kind of taking human-centered design around what we like to call meaningful work and meaningful relationships, right? Mm-hmm. Really trying to figure out, how do we take what we naturally do well and integrate it into the people that we do it with and the work that we do every single day. So it's not work-life balance. Work-life balance is like a symptom of an imbalanced, already unhuman-centered design anyway. We know that we want balance in life, but we can't do it in the system that we currently have today. It's not human-centered life, right? So long story short, that is the goal that you and I are setting out to do right now. That's the goal that Clubany is designed to tackle, and trying to take a human-centered design on our life, not just the products that we use, but how we interact with this world and what we do. So that was really what this book made me think about, in terms of how it relates to like our purpose and our mission and our values. But it was a pretty interesting concept, and I think it just makes sense to me. I mean, I don't know about you, but I'd pause there to get your thoughts, but it just makes sense now. But like, now that I see things from a different paradigm, like I start to see the stuff that we do every single day and how we've constructed our lives, and I'm like, why do we do this? Like, this is insane. Like, this is not what humans are supposed to do, So yeah, I'll pause there. Love to get your thoughts.
So before I give you my 2 cents, human-centered design, is that, you think that's a criticism, or you think it could be a criticism?
Oh, could. I stole it from Don Nelson, but that's okay.
A group of texts that you can put together to be a trigger for your memory palace. For sure. That is a aphorism. Aphorism needs no explanation, because I think human-centered design, it's a broad term, but it plays a lot in what company is all about.
Right.
Because so it's the core of what company is about.
Yes.
And this concept is not new in terms of what we discussed and talked about in the previous episodes, because this reflection in this book reminds me of the art of running downhill, right? Go with the flow and go down the river, not up the stream. Don't go against the stream. Realize it's the same philosophy and concept. And because I'm saying that if you trying to do something, there are certain forces. For example, a river going downhill. Don't try to go up the stream. Orient and reposition yourself that you align with the stream or whatever. Like you're talking about tailwind, you're talking about down the stream, you're talking about green light downhill, you're talking about human-centered design, right? We want to orchestrate our life in a way that we can change the environment, but we can change ourselves to align with the environment so that it makes our life easier than to go against it. And a lot of what I see in today's society is we are doing the opposite. We're making our lives harder.
Exactly.
Because I asked you, why do you need to get up at 5 a.m., try to get the kids to school at 6:30 or 7 o'clock in the morning, and then you drive in traffic to go to work, right? You spend 3 hours from morning to where you get to work at 9, right? You're exhausted by 9 o'clock, and then when you work from 9 to 6, give you 1 hour lunch, and sometimes you eat lunch at a cubicle.
Right.
Jeez. And then you struggle to get home in traffic, right? Basically have a traffic jam packed. People go in the same direction. Right. And after that, you go home, you're more exhausted. It's trying to gulp down.
Try to be a good
dinner.
parent.
You look at the evidence, like you gulp down some dinner, and these are microwave dinner. These are not healthy for you. And now we have an epidemic of health issues, diabetes, and high blood pressure, cholesterol, whatever you name it. It's all chronic, and it continues to rise. It has never taken a break.
Right.
It continues to rise, and this is what we put ourselves into. And we are making ourselves harder. And to me, that isn't human-centered design. You don't have to do any of those things. And that needs to stop. Who come up with the rule that you have to be at work by 9? You have to be at work by the same time every day, and you have to spend 8-9 hours to be productive.
I have no idea.
Who told you? Who told you that?
So you know what it came from, in my thought, is it's factory-centered design. I mean, like the Industrial Revolution, like everything. But we're not factoring anymore.
The environment has changed. The wind has shifted. The wind has changed directions. So you have a sail on your boat, on your ship, whatever, and it's sailing that way, right? You continue to put it on a sail, and you say, "I want to go the other way," and you put out the freaking big sail, right? And the wind changes, and you want to go the other way. And you tell yourself to roll the fucking boat
harder,
to go the opposite. To go the opposite. Passion. The wind is blowing on the sail. You're making it harder for yourself. In that scenario, you just say, "Hey, because it's not the direction I want to go, I took down the sail, so I can just roll a fucking boat in the direction I want. Make it easier on yourself." To me, this that is the essence of what we're doing. Is don't try to go up the river.
I'm so glad I get to comment on this one, because I literally was just writing about this today. I've been struggling this past week because I took a week off for the first time. So I'm about a year and a month into this now, I guess. I've taken 2 weeks off of writing every single day. One was last week when I went to the US Open and went to Florida.
Okay.
So I still wrote my normal writing in the morning of journal stuff and whatever, and writing prompts that I do. But then I took a week off from writing reflections because my schedule's a little bit off, because I'm taking a few weeks off of work before I start my next job. I've been struggling this whole entire week with getting my creativity back and getting the juices flowing. I don't know why. It's just not ramping back up like it always has before. And I finally kind of had that talk with myself this morning. And we had this great reflection about one of the books that I just finished. It was called Tribes by Seth Godin. And I was writing about, he talks a lot about religion versus faith, right? Religion is like the cultural norms, and faith is like what you really believe in your heart.
Right.
religion is built around faith, but religion is rules and regulations, and faith is what's in your heart and what you believe and your value, that kind of stuff, right? So my reflection, eventually I ended up getting these words out of my head of the modern day world is the church of grit. It's everything you're talking about. It's backwards. It's the church of grit. It's work your ass off, passion, persevere, specialization in one thing, like all the things that you and I hate, that's anti-human. If Don Norman was making a product about human-centered design products and he was making an anti-human-centered, they would be flops every single time. That's what we love, products that naturally, seamlessly fit into our life and they enhance it, versus if it was something that was totally janky and shittily designed and we have to use all these different cognitive functions to reprogram our brain to say, this is how you use this stove and this knob that goes to this one. And like this light switch that doesn't do this thing to that one, like, I don't know. Like, I mean, it's just, there's a lot of poorly designed things in this world that don't naturally intuitively go with
a lot of stuff is poorly designed. Right. Like I said,
right.
you put up a sail on a ship, on a boat, right?
Right.
And it went fine for a while. Just like we were on this schedule.
We're cruising with the wind.
Of the factory, right? And then certainly the times has changed, right? We're no longer factory workers. It's the same thing as the wind changing directions, but you still have to sail up. And then you say, hey, I still need to go that direction, but the wind is blowing the opposite direction. So you put more people to row the boat against the wind.
And you call that grit.
Grit. Hey, I'm working hard.
Right. 10,000 hours rowing, No.
I mean, nobody, you went like 2 inches. Not even 2 inches. You lost a bunch of yards, right? Because you couldn't overpower the wind. Right. And you tell yourself, hey, we're better than the next guy because, we have more people rolling.
Right.
And you pat yourself on, hey, we're the best, we're the champion, right? That's what I see.
You're just fighting against human nature.
Why are you trying to go against the grain and not trying to orient yourself and align yourself with the wind? So you have the sail the wind behind you.
Right. And so we call that the church of
balance.
balance.
Downhill, right? Green lights, going downstream. I mean, we talked about these concepts before, and I want to make sure that people understand this is the essence of what we talk about when we say this is Clubany. Clubany is trying to say, who are you? What can you do best, right? What makes you you, right? That only you can do this one thing and that you really, really enjoy. We're going to find ways to make that into something that's meaningful for you, that it has value to someone else. You basically orchestrate and curate the matching of that.
Right.
This is the essence of what we mean when we say meaningful work and meaningful relationship. It is finding
and human-centered design. Right. Yes. No, you're right. Yeah.
Take another step further than human-centered design. We're not doing this for everybody as, hey, this is the rules and whatever for everybody. Everybody not using the same door, right? If you're better with your foot to open the door, we'll build you a foot door opener. If you're better with your hand to open the door, we'll build you a hand door opener, right? So human design to the next level, to human you design.
Should we call it the Church of Humanology? Like Scientology or something like that?
We're not a church.
No, I know.
Like you say, religion is different from faith in that religion is all about the rules.
Right.
It's all about the rules. It's not faith. It's not really what you believe in. It's like, hey, the rules is you can't do this, you can't do that, right? You need to do A, B, C, and D, and whatever the case. They tell you how to practice your faith, whatever.
Community of faithful people that believe in a particular idea, but then they put rules around it. Which then
I would call it a culture rather than a religion.
I agree.
A tribe, right?
Tribe. Yes. Tribe is also religion, So fine, the tribe of balance. How about that? We're the tribe of balance.
Yes, I will take that over because I think the word religion has a bad image in a lot of people's mind,
Yeah.
And just like the word work.
I agree.
It's been used so much that it becomes a negative anchor for a lot of people, and that kind of like derail them from the right path, and they can't see what we're trying to tell them. The moment you say balance and it comes up with something negative, something dreadful in their past, and that's the only thing they can focus on, that's the concept and the idea we want to portray and pass on. They just never got it.
Exactly. So I'm going to say it's the tribe of purpose-driven humans, right? We've talked about that before, but yeah, there you go. I'm capturing these as we go. So no, I mean, it just blows my mind, like how backwards
I
this
mean,
world has got.
you look at Apple, right? Apple is the one that introduced the human-centered design concept from the inception of the iPhone, right? Because he, I think Don was the person that introduced human-centered design to Apple. From that perspective, and now everyone, like I'm in the software industry, everybody is using Apple as the de facto standards for design. Everybody looks to Apple for design, and they are the one that wrote the book on human-centered design. That came from Don. And so you look at Apple and how successful they are. That's because they choose to go down the river and not upstream, and they go using the tailwind to help them move effortlessly.
You can't get to human-centered design unless you understand human beings in general. If you boil down the essence of this whole journey that you and I have been on together, it's kind of learning about who we are, and like you and I have been studying psychology and science and math and physics and religions and memoirs and whatever, like all about basically humanity and how we operate and what we care about and how we learn, how we think, how we act, why we sleep, like, all these things, right? I mean, we've been studying humanity for the past 2.5 years to slow, and then trying things out and like our own core values quest and experimenting on how we wanted to do stuff, and then living our own lives and trying to figure out what works and what doesn't work for us, to ultimately, and we're still figuring this whole thing out. We don't know everything, and we readily admit that. But as we continue to amass more and more knowledge and ideas around how we want to understand what we're trying to do and how we want to build this culture around that human-centered design aspect of it, like that's when things are going to get really, really fun, because we're going to design this for modern day life, for people that want to have meaningful work and meaningful relationships. They don't want to have to figure out like, hey, why can't I be a great parent? Why can't I also have hobbies and activities that I want to do? Why can't I also, be a productive contributor to a project, whether you call it work or not? Like, why can't I also be able to stay in shape? Why can't I eat right? Why can't I sleep right? Like, why can't I do all the things I need to do right, and to do it without feeling stressed and like I have to run for trains every single day to be able to get to what I need to get done? Like, that's human-centered life design, and we're going to figure this out come hell or high water. And we're actually already talking about doing this really fun idea of doing a GoFundMe. I mean, our idea for Clubany is to give people like $80,000 a year as a living wage to support them from a security standpoint. But then from that point on, we want to help them discover who they are, what they care about, what their purpose is, if they can figure that out, and let them go explore and create and do what they want to do and build their own additional income streams within this ecosystem that we're building. And we've been talking about doing this fun Kickstarter program of like, hey, who doesn't want 80,000? I don't think we've ever said this to anybody where we're like, who wouldn't want $80,000 with no strings attached, no job description, no hierarchy, no management to report to, what, like, who wouldn't want that every single day? Every single time we tell it to anybody, they're like, yeah, sign me up. Like, I mean, I'm in 100%. And you're telling me I can still go create and make more additional money on top of that? Like 100%, like, I'm in, you know what I mean? It just makes sense. When Don is designing a product, it just makes sense. When we're doing what we're trying to do, at the end of the day, it should go, well, yeah, that just makes sense. Like, duh. Like, why didn't we ever do that way, Right. And yeah, I mean, that's the plan, right?
Right. Yeah, it's fitting that you said that human-centered design, you have to understand humans, right? And when I say you design, well, you're going to have to understand yourself. But that's where we're taking this, is for you to figure out who you are, understand yourself, for yourself, to figure out what fits you the best. It's the same model as human-centered design, but this is you design. You design what you
your
think
world
that is your calling to do. And for me, that is trying to realign yourself to fit and to match the wind directions versus going against it and try hard to I mean, that's what I see what they do every single day. And I just never understand why it started, how it began. Because right now everybody's doing the same thing, going against the grain. They are stressed out to the max, and no one questioned it. Right? You work until you drop, and no one questioned it.
Right.
Isn't that what you see too? I see a lot of people, they work, quote unquote, their ass off, and literally their ass off, right? people have like in 5 years of working, they have completely changed from this youthful, vibrant person that's just got out of college into this slouchy middle-aged man that is like
taking
losing their
benzos,
hair.
taking Xanax for their panic
Taking
attacks,
Xanax.
or they're taking opioids for their chronic pain that they're in. Right.
Kids are resenting them, wife, or say, you don't care about me.
Hey, all you do is send me away to school every day, and never.
You're snappy too. You're snappy.
Yes.
And it's not to say that, because a lot of times I see people say, because especially in the city, right? If a tourist comes to America and they go to the big city, the tourists say Americans are pretty rude, but only in the city,
right?
Not in the country, right? Why is that? It isn't because that person is rude or that person isn't gracious. It's just they basically have tremendous amount of stress, and they are snappy. They say, "I don't have time for it." They basically ignore you.
Right.
I mean, and it's not like this is the American culture. That isn't it. You go to Japan, same way. Like in the country, people are super nice. You go to the city, I mean, if you pass out and like having a seizure, they walk over you. They don't care. So that's the thing, is it isn't that underneath human are evil, like what a lot of people say. I mean, if you read Humankind, you would have a more optimistic.
Yes.
Okay.
I think so.
I think we can just hint them about Humankind. So I'm not going to talk about anything about Humankind, but I'm saying is this is not the result of the person's character itself. It's a result of the environment factor pressure for them to be, because they have no more flexibility. They are stressed out beyond the capacity to control it. And so they are snappy, right? They are not a bad person. They're just snappy because you can go anywhere. You can go to any country, whether it's first world country, second world country, third world country. You're going to find all sorts of people. It depends on what environment.
You make an amazing point. I'm just now wrapping up Trevor Noah's book, Born a Crime. He talked about growing up in South Africa. They had nothing. They just had their family, and he had a brick to play with as a toy. But he was like, I'm happy. Now I live in America, and I see what you guys have. And he was like, it sucks. Just because you don't have a lot doesn't mean you can't be happy. He lived like a human. He played every single day. He was with his family. He was with his friends. They had the food that they needed. They had meaningful relationships. He was a happy person. You know what I mean? More does not equal. Like, we've built this entire infrastructure up around doing non-human centered things. Like, the reason cities exist, if I had
You're not made to sit in a cubicle. You're not a robot. That is anti-human centered design. So whatever we do here, it is opposite of what we want. And I can relate to Trevor Noah because I came from Vietnam, right? Vietnam, I would say kind of like third world country, close to second world country. Well, when I was growing up, like, I played with dirt. I played with sticks.
Right.
You know?
You were happy. You were fine.
I had a blast. I have no shoes. I go out there, we play soccer. We play with some kind of a rock or a hay ball, right? We put hay together and we wrap it up into a ball and we kick it around. It's not a soccer ball, but we still play. We have a lot of friends who have time to play. In America, I have hundreds times more money than I had back then. I probably 1,000 times more than I had back then. But I don't have time to play soccer. I don't have time to play anyone. I don't have time to talk to anyone for like more than 30 minutes. I'm constantly doing things that is not fulfilling. Whether I have, it's like the things I had to do is not a thing I want to do. And for me and you, to put it into perspective, you and I are doing the things we want to do because we basically prioritize that and say, hey, okay, this is the first thing I do in the morning. And regardless of what happened, I got to do this first. This is the only reason why we're able to do the things that we want to do. Otherwise, we're going to fill with things we should do, we have to do, or we must do. I don't think you ever have a break because I'm looking at my kids right now. Because my kids from 4 years old, you got to go to pre-K, and you go to 12th grade, you go to college. You have in college, even in college, you have pressure. And then after that, you work until you're 70. From 4 to 70, you are a fucking robot. to this society. You're fucking slave to the society. It's slave back in the 1800. That better lives than us.
Well,
yeah, today we have freedom.
I think that could open up Pandora's box. It would be an interesting topic to dive into, but I think just let's put a pin on that one. It's a provocative statement, but let's put a pin on that one. You and I can talk about that one offline, I think. But no, I don't disagree with your sentiment in general of people today having more time than they've ever had before in their life, but less time to actually be themselves, and like that kind of is mind blowing, I mean, it's sad. I remember that book, Enlightenment Now, that Steven Pinker book that we did really early on. There's never been more discretionary time than anybody has in their life than right now today. Why can't you do the stuff that we're doing? They would say, well, I'm too busy.
I don't have time.
I don't have time.
That's like most common response.
You don't have to cook. You don't have to do dishes. You don't have to take care of your house. You don't have to go hunt.
I mean, put into perspective, we basically live better than King Louis of France in the 16th century.
For sure.
You want food? Yeah. What kind of Indian, Italian, Alaskan, whatever? You pick up a phone and you call, hey, Uber, send me this. You want a chauffeur? Call Uber. Come here, right? You want a hotel, you want whatever. You want to cook, you want deliverable, Amazon. I mean,
travel.
Even King Louis has to wait like months to get his deliveries. We had to wait 2 days to get deliveries from across the world.
Right.
Okay. So we have the capacity to live beyond King Louis of France in the 16th century, but we have been put ourselves into a system where we are has less time than I don't want to talk about, but the people back in 1800, at least they go work when the sun comes up, when it goes down, at least they have the time for themselves. They don't have to do anything other than I'm going to enjoy myself with whatever I want. And then morning I go work again from sun up to sundown. Today, you work sun up, you work sundown. That's not enough. You stay work after sundown. You got to work at midnight. You burn the midnight oil. You work past, you sleep 3 hours, 5 hours. So you tell me, I mean, like I say, feel free to disagree, but I have evidence that I see that it's saying it, and it's not like
I don't disagree.
It's not like this is something that we are basically have no other choice. It's just like for whatever reason, we never choose the choice that we had. We just accept the option that was given to you. You didn't say, no, this is not what I want. The good thing and the difference about what we are today versus back then is you have that option to say, no, I don't want this. But no one did. No one is saying no to it. No one saying, I don't want to work like this. This is not going to get you the best value. I'm not productive because there's something I don't want to do. It's dreadful for me, right? The good thing is that you have the freedom to choose, the right to choose.
Right.
It's just that you never did. And by default, if you didn't choose, the default option is given to you and you took it. And that
a choice, somebody else's choice architecture, like we learned back in Nudge. Somebody else nudged you and you went along with it. I mean, that's also human-centered design as well as nudging. It's very much so human-centered design principled to say like, hey, I know humans, our brain thinks certain ways and they do certain things. So if we strategically
because human-centered design by nudging
is
like, you basically, just like, how those game red light, green light, right? Red light, you stop. Green light, you go. So you inch so slow that you never noticed. Your brain never noticed that. So you got fooled into thinking it never changed. So you worked in a factory back in the days and you make a lot of money because in the war, you make a lot of money because you work in a factory and the hard work pays off. But it doesn't work like that anymore. But it nudges you a little by little so slow that you never notice it. And you never say, no, wait a minute, that's not what I want. You continue to say, hey, just a little bit. Okay, never mind. It's not that bad.
Right.
Because if I ask you, hey, Chris, can you give me 5 cents? I charge you 5 cents and say, okay, 5 cents, no problem. And then later on, I ask you another 5 cents, another 5 cents. because you never notice how big it was until after the compound effect of having so many asks over the long term. It's a huge amount. Only then when you look at the whole picture, you say, oh shit, that's a lot of money. I'm going to say no. But if I ask you 5 cents, say, it's not much. And you do that all the time. I know you.
Right.
Because every time we have to do something and you say, it's only like $59, $69, I'll pay for it. And then you pay for it right away. And I know you do that. And that's just human, right? Nothing wrong with that. It's great that you're generous.
Make a decision.
It's just that because of the generosity in human like yourself, that a lot of these systems, they will exploit that and will nudge you, and then you never notice. And eventually you're looking back at your 10 years history, you give them like $10,000.
100%. So like the more that we've been talking about this, the more that I start to think about like, look, the factory, I don't want to shit on like the factory, world, right? Like that was a huge leap forward in terms of like, we wouldn't have all the things that we just talked about. You could
right. And I totally agree. I like wind is blowing that direction. Back in the days, factory is great, but it doesn't need to be a factory right now because you have a lot of robots working there. You just need to match the environment.
Agreed. That's what I was going to say is like, we've talked about this before of Clubany being our own kind of black swan type. You could call the factories a black swan event, right? I don't know that anybody ever saw that coming. People like Henry Ford all of a sudden started to figure out ways to mass produce things and to use assembly lines. I don't think that if somebody in the 1850s would have said, hey, by this time in the early 1900s or whatever, like this will be blah, 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 blah. Like that was a black swan event, honestly. It was probably like the assembly line.
No one foresaw that.
Right, exactly. And that's why we all talk about Henry Ford. Hell, that book that I finished a few months ago, The Brave New World, where they say like, for Ford's sake, it was such a revolutionary idea. But yeah, like for Ford, oh my Ford, right? The funny thing is what we've talked about though, is like Clubany could have the potential to be its own black swan event. I don't know how we got to where we got to. I don't know where this is going, but I know that we're doing the right thing. And I know that there's something that we feel like there could be a breakthrough if we keep tweaking this and building this you-centered universe and a human-centered universe inside of whatever the universe is that we live in today. I think people might look at that, in 30, 40, 50 years from now and go, well, that just makes sense. But maybe in 200 years, somebody else is having a conversation saying, well, they just didn't get it. Like, they were missing blah, blah, blah. And I'm sure that's going to happen. That's evolution. That's what's going on. And I'm sure there's a million things that we're missing as we think about this stuff and live this stuff and design this stuff. But at the end of the day, that's what we do as humans. We're composers. We build things. We try things. We create.
And
we try to find better ways to live our life.
Superpower, and you are telling us not to use a superpower, and that is very hard to do because a person is supposed to have imagination to be thriving. They're supposed to be creative. They're supposed to be composing and creating things.
And Henry Ford
That's
did.
for them to be thriving as a human. But today we're asked to do one thing. Just one thing that basically diminishes all your superpower. Basically, it's a kryptonite for your superpower.
Right. Agreed.
And this is why it is so stressful because you are basically restraining from using superpower that you're naturally inclined to do.
Right.
People are very inspired when they have different things that they are attached to. And it doesn't always go, it's not like that. It's like, I'm a musician for this next 2 years, and then I want to do something else. I want to play tennis or play poker or play whatever. It changes, right?
Right.
We are adaptable, and this is our superpower. And you are telling us not to be adaptable, to be in one, pick your career. Be a lawyer, a doctor, engineer, a marketer, or whatever. Pick your career. Because right now you're a great marketer and business person, entrepreneur, right? And say, hey, Chris, you need to go program code. Right. It's like, oh, well, for your particular skills, I can only pay you minimum wage. Street level, right? And you say,
you would not want me to.
No, I can't do that because I'm making like 200K here, 400K over here, right? There's no way. So you get penalized for switching. And so you can't switch. You have to stay in the sales role, whatever it is, to make it. And even if you hate it, you still have to stay with it because you get penalized for switching.
Right. You can't just be a human and go explore and go try.
Because the thing is, this is what robots are good at, not human. Right. We are adaptable, and that's a superpower of ours.
Agreed. Great. You know, what's funny is when we first started out this whole entire journey together, I remember you being all about specialization versus generalization. You know, I feel like that might be turning a little bit. I still think that it's important to specialize in things you really care about for as long as you want to care about it. But I feel like you were always like, you know, it's better to be specialized than to be more generalized.
I still do. I still do. Yeah. It hasn't changed. Okay. You got to be specialized, but specialized in the things that you want to do, not in the thing that someone chose for you. I want to be a doctor, right? Because my mom told me you want to be a doctor, or I told my dad to be a doctor, or we told, in my culture, you want to help people. I'm saying in my culture, it's like, okay, your parents is worked hard, making the back labor to work hard to give you money to go to school, and they want you to be a doctor, lawyer, engineer. Right. That's your options. You can't be an artist. You can't be a musician. You can't be a singer. You can't be anything else. Okay. And that's what I'm saying is you are specialized to become a doctor, but that's not your choice.
Right.
It wasn't your choice. You want to be, and to me, specializations in your choice isn't it, you can't avoid it. Because I'm telling you, Chris, you love tennis, right?
I'm not good enough to be professional at it, but I'm a good.
What would you say you compare, like, what is your percentage, like top 50?
Probably 98% of the people in this world.
Exactly. Top 50, top 70. Like, that's what I'm saying is you love it so much, you become a specialist. It's inevitable.
Oh, I agree. I know exactly what you're saying. And I agree with everything you're saying. I was making a joke. I remember back in the day where you were like, this is what you do. You know, just disregard the comment. It was more of a joke about, you know, like, it's an evolving take on specialization that I totally agree with you 100%.
Right. And I guess this is why I meant, because it's not something you say, hey, I love something, but I'm going to restrain myself from not doing it. I love football or I love tennis, but I'm saying I'm not going to play tennis.
Right.
I mean, to me, that's human-centered design, right? So, because you love tennis so much, of course you're gonna play more than other people. And when you play more than other people, you're gonna be more better than the guy who isn't playing.
So this might be a truism. How about specialization? And, you know, like,
exactly.
If you're gonna specialize in anything, specialize in being true. You know, and and I think you'll go a long way, right? You know,
specializing in you.
Awesome. All right. Well, I feel like that's a good stopping point for you. Feel purged for the day?
Yeah, I feel good.
So the question we can leave for everybody is how can you apply the concept of human-centered design to your own life? So, you know, whether that be you-centered design or specializing in yourself or whatever. And if you're looking for any help, we're here to help. So let us know. That's what we're trying to do as well. So thanks for joining, and we will see you all on Monday.